Welcome back to HFY Vanguard, the stronghold of human grit among the stars. Listen closely. The tale begins. The alien device didn't so much break as it did have an existential crisis right on Ryan Dalton's workbench. It sputtered, coughed a shower of crackling purple arcs across the table, and made a noise somewhere between a dying blender and a bagpipe giving its last will and testament. Ryan instinctively jerked back, nearly dropping his plasma wrench. The smell hit him, next ionized mist laced with something distinctly unearthly, like someone had taken burnt rubber cinnamon and the faint metallic tang of a thunderstorm, then mixed it all together in an alien kitchen appliance from hell. "Easy there, beautiful," Ryan muttered, wiping a fresh streak of sweat and grease across his forehead with the back of his hand. The thing looked like a toaster and a particle accelerator had gone on a weekend bender together and woken up regretting every life choice. The housing panels still shimmered with alien script that pulsed faintly, almost like it could hear him. "Just need to recalibrate your flux capacitor or whatever the hell you call this thing." Behind him, Orruron, his client, if you could call a jittery green alien with the manners of a cornered cat a client, paced the narrow confines of the everything fixable workshop. His skin shifted through queasy shades of chartreuse lime and pea soup green, as though he were cycling through the galaxy's ugliest mood ring. His three-fingered hands clutched a wrist device the size of a paperback novel, its display cycling through at least 17 different time zones from planets Ryan couldn't pronounce. How much longer? Orruron's voice had the texture of wet sandpaper being dragged over glass. "Yeah, well, your toaster from hell just tried to electrocute me," Ryan shot back without looking up, squinting into the nest of glowing circuitry. "So maybe dial back the urgency before I accidentally turn this thing into a very expensive doorstop." "What did you say this was again?" "I didn't." Orruron's skin darkened sharply, sliding toward forest green. Ryan had worked with enough aliens to know that was the universal bad sign color. Before Ryan could push, the shop's front door slammed open hard enough to rattle the bell into submission. Chris Chef Donovan filled the doorway, a wall of ex-Marine muscle in a grease-stained apron that proclaimed, "Kiss the cook," or "Get court-martialed." He brandished a spatula like it was a weapon. "Bro," he barked, jabbing the spatula toward Orruron, "your alien clientele is scaring away my customers again." Mrs. Henderson saw green jeans here through the window and nearly choked on her bacon burger. Ryan didn't look up. "Chris, we've been over this. Earth joined the Galactic League 5 years ago. Deal with it." "I dealt with it fine when it meant better Wi-Fi and those Andromedan beer imports," Chris said, stepping further into the shop, nostrils flaring. "But now your place smells like somebody set fire to a yoga mat in a candy factory." "That's the interdimensional plasma converter," Ryan said without missing a beat, glancing up just long enough to smirk. Or possibly Orruron, hard to tell. Hard. Before Chris could retort, Orruron's wrist device erupted in a symphony of beeps, whistles, and what sounded disturbingly like a mariachi band warming up. His green skin blanched to the sickly pale of old pistachio ice cream. "They found me." The words came out as barely a whisper. Ryan set down his tools, expression sharpening. "Who found you?" But Orruron was already backing toward the door, fumbling inside his coat with shaking fingers. He slapped a metallic disc on the counter. It gleamed with an oily rainbow sheen that screamed official in a way no Earth paperwork ever could. "Your payment?" Orruron said, his voice pitched high with panic. "All debts settled. They're in the apartment above your shop. Both of them legal and binding by galactic law." "Wait, what?" Ryan lunged forward, but the air where Orruron had stood shimmered and warped, collapsing into the sour-sweet stench of teleportation. Chris waved his spatula through the fading mist. "Did that walking pickle just dump something on you?" Ryan picked up the disc. It felt warm, almost alive, pulsing faintly against his palm. Alien script rippled across its surface, rearranging itself into English as he watched. His stomach dropped. "Oh, hell." What Chris leaned over his shoulder. "It says," Ryan swallowed, "transfer of custodial rights and familial obligations pursuant to Galactic Code 743.2. He looked at Chris, voice flat. "He left me his family." Chris blinked slowly like a goldfish trying to process algebra. "Please tell me we're talking about a goldfish." "They're in the apartment upstairs," Ryan said, already moving toward the exterior stairs with the disc clutched tight. "Both of them," Chris called after him. "I don't think they're goldfish," Ryan shot back. They pounded up the stairs. Ryan's boots hitting the worn wooden treads in time with the growing drumbeat of disbelief in his chest. The apartment had been empty for 6 months, serving as a dumping ground for storage boxes and parts too awkward to fit in the shop. He jammed the master key into the lock, turned it, and pushed the door open. Holy, Chris cut himself off. Two figures stood in the center of the room, surrounded by 3 suitcases and a scattering of alien devices that made Ryan's workbench look like something from a garage sale. The taller one turned first. Ryan's brain short-circuited. She was purple. Not painted purple, not wearing purple. Her skin was the color of twilight with a subtle, inner luminescence that made her seem lit from within. Her eyes, amber flecked with molten gold, fixed on him with a mixture of surprise and resignation. Her hair moved like it was underwater, each strand glimmering with its own fiber-optic light. And she was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that made you forget your own name and maybe walk into a wall if you weren't careful. "You are Ryan Dalton." Her voice was low, melodic, with consonants that seemed to sparkle in the air. The mechanic, Ryan's brain still rebooting, managed, yeah. A snort came from the smaller figure beside her, a girl who looked about 16 in Earth years, skin the same luminous purple, but with hair tinted green, threaded through with actual tiny lights. "Smooth, Mom," the girl said, flopping onto the couch with the heavy sigh of a teenager. "We've been transferred to a guy who can't even form complete sentences." The woman Mom apparently shot her a look sharp enough to cross species lines. "Arena, manners." "What manners? We just got handed off like a Netflix password again." "Chris, ever helpful," Stage whispered. "Dude, the green guy left you purple people." I can see that, Ryan hissed back, still gripping the disc like it might bite him. He cleared his throat, trying for something resembling composure. Orion said something about payment debts." "We are nothing to him," the woman said flatly, her jaw tightening. "I am Malloria. This is my daughter, Arena." Up close, Malloria's presence was overwhelming. Not just because she was beautiful in that intergalactic diplomatic incident kind of way, but because there was a subtle hum in the air around her, as if the space she occupied didn't entirely agree with gravity's rules. She stood in the center of the sparsely furnished apartment, posture, straight, amber, gaze steady, like someone used to keeping her dignity intact under less than ideal circumstances. Arena, by contrast, had slouched herself deep into the threadbare couch cushions. Legs sprawled, fiddling with a device in her hands that looked like a smartphone, and a disco ball had a hyperactive child. Ryan took a step, in boots creaking on the old hardwood. "So, Orion mentioned you had a business arrangement." Malloria's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Wariness, maybe? "Yes, a marriage of convenience, as you say on Earth. In exchange for legal residency documents within the Galactic League, I agreed to fulfill certain requirements on paper. It was never real." "Fake marriage," Arena said without looking up from her gadget. "Mom needed papers to keep us from getting deported back to the war zone formerly known as our planet. Orion needed someone to claim on his taxes. Match made in bureaucratic heaven." Arena Malloria's tone was sharp, but there was exhaustion under it. What he should know the deal. Ryan held up a hand. "Look, I'm not in the business of owning people. I fix engines, not families." Malloria tilted her head, studying him like she was weighing that statement against some invisible scale. "That is good to hear. We have been transferred before. Twice. 3 times," Arena corrected, "if you count the Regalian who tried to trade us for a ship." Ryan blinked. "Wait, people can just— No, that's insane." Chris leaned against the door frame, arms crossed, looking entirely too amused. "Actually, galactic contracts are pretty binding. My cousin Eddie got stuck with a sentient plant for 6 months. Thing wouldn't stop singing show tunes." Ryan shot him a look, not helping. "I'm just saying." Before Ryan could figure out what the hell to do next, the air around Malloria shimmered. It wasn't just a visual thing, he felt it. A subtle tug in his chest, like his stomach had decided to jump 2 inches higher than it should. Arena groaned without looking up. "You're doing the thing, Mom." "I am not." Malloria started, but cut herself off as the coffee table in the center of the room began to lift, floating gently upward as if on invisible strings. Ryan took an instinctive step back as his toolbox, he'd left it just inside the door, started to rise too, wrenches clinking together in midair. "Okay, what exactly is happening right now?" "Lion women," Arena said in the tone of someone who'd explained this far too many times, "affect localized gravity when they get emotional. Supposedly an evolutionary advantage. Personally, I think it's just embarrassing." I am fine, Malloria said through what sounded like clenched teeth, even as Chris's baseball cap floated off his head and drifted toward the ceiling. Right, Chris said, plucking it out of the air. Because nothing says fine like making my hat fly. Ryan raised both hands. Okay, let's all breathe deep breaths, Malloria. Let's try to get gravity back to normal before my insurance company starts asking questions I can't answer. She closed her eyes, shoulders rising and falling. Slowly, the object settled back down coffee table, first, then toolbox, then Chris's dignity. I apologize, Malloria said stiffly. It has been a difficult day. Yeah, I bet. Ryan raked a hand through his hair, which only made it stick up in more awkward directions. Look, I don't care what that disc says. You're not property. You're people. Guests. You can stay here until we figure this out. Arena's green-lit eyebrows shot up. Guests, not assets, acquisitions, or biological collateral. Ryan's stomach turned. Jesus, is that what people have been calling you? Among other things, Malloria said quietly. Well, not here, Ryan said firmly. The apartment's not much, but it's clean, mostly. There's a grocery store 2 blocks down. And Chris makes decent burgers despite his personality. Hey, Chris protested. Malloria's brow furrowed. We cannot pay rent, or Ruron controlled all our funds. I didn't ask for rent. Then what do you want? The question came out sharper than she probably intended, defensive, like she was bracing for the usual answer. Ryan met her gaze. I want to undo whatever the hell Ruron just did. And I want to make sure you and your daughter are okay. For the first time, something softened in her face. Her lips curved just slightly toward a smile. That smell in your shop, she said. The cinnamon, that is Arena's hair products. She insists on using Beetlejuice brand. It's the only thing that works with the lights. Arena predictably protested. Hey, it's not my fault Earth hair stuff doesn't work on bioluminescent follicles. Chris's stomach growled audibly. Speaking of products, I've got a restaurant to run. You good here with your new house guests? Ryan nodded. Yeah, I'm good. Cool. Ladies, if you need anything, I'm next door. Best burgers in the sector. Ask anyone except the health inspector. As Chris left, Ryan became suddenly aware of how they were all positioned him near the door. Malloria by the window, Arena sprawled on the couch. A triangle of polite but wary distance. So, Ryan said awkwardly, are you hungry? I mean, do you eat Earth food? We eat, Arena said, not looking up from her device. But if you're thinking pizza, you should know Mom's lactose intolerant, violently. Arena, what he should know. Remember what happened at that rest stop in Nevada? Malloria's cheeks darkened to a deep plum. That was an isolated incident. You created a localized gravitational anomaly in a Denny's mom. They had to close for 3 days. Ryan bit back a grin. Okay, no pizza then. Chinese. Arena perked up slightly. Can we get those little fried dough things? What do you call them? Donuts. Donuts, she repeated thoughtfully. Your planet has very strange rules about food. Ryan chuckled, pulling out his phone to order. When he glanced up, he caught Malloria watching him with those impossible amber eyes. And for just a second, her skin shimmered like purple starlight. Thank you, she said softly, for not being like the others. Ryan shrugged, uncomfortable with the weight of gratitude. I fix things. It's what I do. We are not things to be fixed. No, he said, but this situation is. And I'm pretty good with complicated machinery. Malloria's lips twitched. We are not machinery either. I know, but you do come with some interesting features. Anti-gravity lights in your hair, interdimensional luggage. Her brows lifted. How did you know the luggage was interdimensional? Lucky guess. That ended its humming in B-flat. This time her smile was real, and it transformed her face from beautiful to breathtaking. Ryan had barely finished wiping down the counter in the shop the next morning when someone pounded on the front door hard enough to make the glass rattle. It was way too early for customers. The open sign still hung backward, and he hadn't even poured his first cup of coffee yet. He shuffled toward the door in yesterday's jeans and a faded t-shirt that read, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I play one at work. The pounding came again. Open this establishment immediately. This is official Galactic League business. Ryan groaned under his breath. That's never a good sentence to wake up to. He swung the door open and stopped dead. The being on his doorstep stood about 5'8" humanoid in build, but with skin that looked like old ledger paper stretched over muscle and bone. Lines of faded text scrolled slowly across every visible surface, regulations, subsections, and what might have been tax code footnotes. 3 eyes stared back at him, 2 placed where you'd expect, and a third larger one in the center of the forehead glowing a soft green like the readout of a calculator. Ryan Dalton, the alien intoned. Yeah. The middle eye pulsed faintly. You're lying. Ryan blinked. What? Approximation is a form of deception. It is currently 7:03 a.m. and you said, yeah, implied uncertainty. English before coffee, please, Ryan muttered. The alien stepped forward, conjuring a slim, metallic tablet from thin air. I am Senator Ver Orvin, Intergalactic Commissioner of Family Debts, Marital Transfers and Domestic Obligations. That's a mouthful. Where are the transferred parties? Ryan frowned. The what now? The Lyrian female and her offspring. The debt payments. Orvin's voice was crisp, bureaucratic, like someone had swallowed an instruction manual and was still digesting it. Upstairs, Ryan said reluctantly. But hold on. The commissioner didn't hold on. He started scanning the shop with a palm-sized device that emitted a faint blue light. Biosignatures distinct. Yes, they are present. I will need to verify their living conditions immediately. Ryan's brain was still trying to catch up, but one word stuck out. Verify, what does that mean exactly? Orvin's middle eye flicked toward him while the others kept scanning. Weekly welfare checks are mandatory for all transferred familial obligations. Subsection C of Galactic Code 743.2 clearly states. Ryan held up both hands. No subsections before caffeine. Orvin's sigh sounded like paper rustling in a very judgmental way. Fine, in simpler terms, I must ensure the arrangement is genuine. They're not an arrangement. They're people, Ryan shot back. People subject to galactic law. Orvin corrected without a hint of irony. This includes proof of cohabitation, shared responsibilities. A loud crash echoed from above, followed by a distinctly alien curse word that made Orvin's scrolling skin flicker. An evidence of emotional stability, he finished dryly. That did not sound stable. Ryan was already heading for the stairs. Come on, and don't touch anything in here without asking. Upstairs, the kitchen looked like a small-scale gravitational disaster zone. Pieces of what had once been Ryan's toaster floated lazily in a slow orbit around Malloria's head. She stood, frozen hands still extended toward the empty space where the appliance had been, her expression somewhere between frustration and shame. I just wanted toast, she said miserably. Why do Earth devices break so easily? Mal. Ryan carefully navigated into the field, noting how his boots got lighter the closer he came. Deep breaths. Let's bring the toaster down before... Malloria, Orvin's voice cut across the room like a paper cut. Her amber eyes widened, then narrowed to molten gold slits. Ver, you two know each other, Ryan asked. I should have known, Malloria said coldly. You were my legal advocate during my first residency application before you decided career advancement was more important than your promises. I followed proper protocol, Orvin said, middle eye dimming slightly. You followed ambition. Arena shuffled into the doorway, hair sticking up in neon green spikes, wearing an oversized t-shirt that read, My other ride is a spaceship. She took in the scene-floating toaster debris, her mother's defensive stance, the three-eyed bureaucrat, and deadpanned, oh good. The fun police are here. Miss Arena Orvan said, consulting his tablet, age 13. Lyrian years, approximately 16 Earth years. Currently unregistered in any educational institution. This is a violation of... I start school Monday, Arena interrupted. Ryan already set it up. Jefferson High, go Wildcats or whatever. The scanner in Orvin's hand beeped. Genetic anomalies detected. Hybrid traits. Your father was... Gone, Arena snapped. That's all that matters. An awkward silence filled the kitchen. The last bits of toaster clinked gently back onto the counter. Ryan clapped his hands together. How about coffee? Bureaucracy always goes better with caffeine. I do not consume Earth beverages, Orvin said primly. Your loss. Ryan started the coffee maker. So what exactly do you need to verify here? That they have beds, food, that you are not keeping them in cages. The arrangement must be genuine. Your contract clearly states... What contract? Ryan turned from the counter. Acceptance of payment constitutes agreement. You allowed them to stay. You provided shelter. You filed the school registration. All actions consistent with accepting the transferred obligation. I was being a decent human being, Ryan said. Admirable, also legally binding. Malloria stepped closer enough that Ryan caught the faint scent of ion mist mixed with something floral, like roses after lightning. What happens if he refuses? You and your daughter will be deported to Lyon immediately. Lyon is a war zone, Ryan said sharply. That is not my concern. Mr. Dalton would also face penalties, minimum 5 years labor on the asteroid mines of Kepler 442. Ryan stared at him. The asteroid. You're insane. I am thorough. Orvin's gaze swept the apartment. This space is inadequate for a family unit. The Lyrian female requires a private meditation area. The adolescent needs proper study facilities. Where are the recreational zones? It's a two-bedroom apartment, not a compound, Ryan said. Substandard, Orvin noted, making a swipe on his tablet. I will return in 72 hours for a proper inspection. I expect to see evidence of genuine cohabitation, shared meals, interpersonal bonding, perhaps even romantic attachment. This is a familial unit, not roommates. We just met yesterday, Ryan said. Irrelevant. The contract specifies a family. Orvin headed for the door, pausing just long enough to fix Ryan with his central eye. 72 hours, Mr. Dalton. Use them wisely. The door clicked shut behind him. Irina folded her arms. Well, he seems fun in a soul-sucking bureaucrat from hell kind of way. Language, Malloria said automatically, then sank into a chair. This is worse than I thought. Ryan poured coffee into 2 mugs, sliding one across to her. Okay, someone explain why this guy cares so much about us playing house. Malloria stared into the mug like it might give her courage. Vera and I knew each other before. He was my legal assistant when I first tried to get refugee status the proper way. He was brilliant, passionate about helping displaced families. I thought he was different. Let me guess, Ryan said. He wasn't. He was offered a promotion to senior commissioner. It required absolute adherence to regulations. No personal connections that might compromise judgment. He chose the job. Her voice tightened. And now he enforces those same rules with zeal. Classic overcompensation, Irina said, picking at the couch arm. Probably still hung up on you, Mom. Did you see how his middle eye dimmed when you glared at him? That's not helping. I'm just saying maybe we could use it. Make him jealous. Ryan could pretend to be into you. Ryan choked on his coffee. You don't have to think, Irina said. Just look smitten. Hold hands. Stare longingly. You know romance stuff. Do you actually know any romance stuff, Ryan asked. I've seen movies. Earth ones. Though your mating rituals are weird. Why does everyone keep running through airports? Ryan held up a hand. Time out. Nobody's faking anything. We'll figure this out without turning it into a soap opera. A sharp crack interrupted him. The coffee mug in Malloria's hands had disintegrated into a swirl of floating ceramic dust. Coffee hung in midair as perfect brown spheres. I'm destroying your home, she said miserably. You're having a rough morning, Ryan countered. There's a difference. The next 72 hours were supposed to be about genuine cohabitation, but in reality they turned into a crash course in what Ryan started calling purple-powered domestic disasters. It began with the toasters. By noon on the first day, they had already gone through 2 of them. The first had floated, spun slowly in place like it was preparing for a space launch, and then simply folded in on itself in a way no appliance manual had ever anticipated. The second tried valiantly to function, but mid-toast cycle succumbed to a sudden spike in localized gravity that crumpled its casing like a soda can. Purple power strikes again, Ryan muttered, prying the mangled toaster out of the counter slot. It is not purple power, Malloria protested from across the kitchen, floating a good 6 inches off the floor in a subconscious lift. She didn't seem to notice. It is a complex manipulation of gravitational fields through emotional quantum entanglement. Ryan smirked and offered her a hand down. Purple power. Rolls off the tongue better. She took it with a huff, but didn't let go right away. The contact sent that familiar little jolt through his arm, a soft electric hum like touching the glass of a plasma globe. Irina, perched on the couch with a textbook in her lap, rolled her eyes. If you 2 are done flirting with quantum physics, I'd like to finish my homework without losing another toaster to science. Irina's return to school came the following morning. Ryan drove her because apparently buses were primitive communal cattle transports, in her words. You still segregate students by age groups, she complained, fiddling with the straps of her backpack, which she had modified to be bigger on the inside. On Lion, we group by aptitude. I was in advanced quantum mechanics with beings 3 times my age. Yeah, well, Ryan said, navigating toward Jefferson High here, you get to dissect frogs and pretend to care about the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem is fundamental to. It's also on the standardized test, so just pretend to learn it again. She slumped in her seat. This planet is backwards. Ryan pulled up to the curb. Look, I know this sucks. Being stuck here, starting over, having a 3-eyed bureaucrat breathing down our necks. But you're tough, tougher than any teenager I've met, Earth or otherwise. Irina was quiet for a long beat. My dad used to say that, right before his last mission. Her gaze drifted out to the window. I'll see you at 3. Try not to let Mom gravitize the shop while I'm gone. By the time Irina got home that afternoon, she had made exactly one friend. Her name's Laia Rodriguez. Irina reported over dinner. She's a social media hurricane, and apparently, I'm her new aesthetic goals. She thinks my hair is main character energy. Ryan raised an eyebrow. That sounds positive. She thinks I use some kind of advanced hair dye. I didn't correct her. Irina twirled spaghetti on her fork. Is it wrong that I like having someone who doesn't know I'm an alien refugee with a missing father and a mom who bends physics when she's upset? Malloria's voice softened. It's not wrong to want normal. Ryan set down his fork. Sometimes lies let us breathe. Just don't let it become who you are. Irina studied him. Speaking from experience, my fiancé left me at the altar, Ryan admitted. Left a note saying she couldn't marry someone who fixes everyone but himself. I told myself I was fine. Lied to everyone, including me, for 2 years. Did you ever fix yourself? Malloria asked. Working on it, Ryan said, meeting her eyes. Something passed between them, recognition of shared damage and the careful hope of healing. The moment shattered when the spaghetti pot achieved liftoff, drifting toward the ceiling in a lazy spiral. Evenings became their own kind of adventure. On the second night, Ryan decided to teach Malloria how to drive, figuring it was a good earth skill and a way to get her mind off Orvin's deadline. They used the empty parking lot behind Chris's restaurant under the orange wash of streetlights. The key is smooth movements, Ryan said, bracing one hand on the dash as she started the truck. Unlike my gravitational control, she said wryly, gripping the wheel a little too tightly. You're getting better. We only lost one lawn ornament today. That pink bird was hideous, Malloria said, managing a small smile as she eased the truck forward. Mrs. Henderson's flamingo might have been missed by some, but Ryan wasn't about to admit it. You did the neighborhood a favor. She laughed, relaxing enough that her footwork smoothed out. This is nice, she admitted. The freedom. On Lion, only military personnel could operate vehicles. Well, here you can drive anywhere. See the world. Take Irina on college tours someday. Her smile faded a fraction. You think we'll still be here in a few years? Ryan caught what she really meant. Will you still want us here? I fix things for the long haul. No quick patches in my shop. She parked the truck with only a mild gravitational hiccup that made the glove compartment pop open. We're not machines, Ryan. No, he agreed. You're much more complicated and way more interesting. In the dim cab, her amber eyes searched his face. Most people run when things get complicated. Good thing I'm not most people. The air between them seemed to grow heavier, not from her gravity field, but from something more dangerous. She leaned forward slightly, and Ryan found himself matching her without even thinking. The moment was broken by the buzz of Irina's text, done with homework, pizza. They both sat back, speaking over each other. We should, yeah, definitely. It was awkward, but as they drove toward the pizza place, Malloria's hand found his on the gear shift. Neither of them mentioned it. The third day had its own rhythm. Irina left for school. Ryan worked in the shop, and Malloria, now comfortable enough to wander in, started helping with repairs. She had surprisingly steady hands and a knack for delicate components, though tools occasionally hovered an inch off the table if she got frustrated. By evening, they had settled into something almost resembling a family routine. Irina spread her homework across the coffee table, Malloria prepped dinner with Ryan, keeping an eye on anything that might float, and Chris wandered in with unsolicited commentary. This place is starting to feel domestic, Chris said, stealing a breadstick. You two keep this up, Orvin might actually think you're in love. Ryan threw him a look, not helping, just saying. Malloria ignored the jab, but Ryan caught the faintest blush in her purple skin. It struck him then how quickly the apartment had changed. Boxes shoved against the walls were now unpacked, alien trinkets sat beside earth coffee mugs, and the air smelled faintly of cinnamon and solder. This wasn't just cohabitation for the sake of a deadline. It was something else, something harder to define. And maybe, just maybe, something worth fighting for when Orvin came back. The morning of the fourth day should have been inspection day, prep scrubbing counters, hiding broken appliances, and maybe bribing Chris to play the role of supportive neighbor. Instead, Ryan woke to the sight of Malloria standing in his doorway, purple skin, pale and eyes wide, with something he'd never seen in her before: panic. She's gone, Malloria said, voice tight. Ryan sat up so fast the blanket tangled around his legs. What do you mean gone? Irina. Her bed hasn't been slept in. The window was open when I checked. And she held out a folded piece of paper with hands that trembled just enough to make his stomach drop. Ryan took it, recognizing Irina's sharp, impatient handwriting. I'm not cargo to be passed around. You're all better off without the complications I bring. Don't look for me. I know how to disappear. Dad taught me before he vanished. Tell Ryan thanks for trying. Tell Mom I love her. Tell Orvin he wins. Ryan crumpled the note in his fist. No, she doesn't get to do this. Not now. He hopped into yesterday's jeans, nearly tripping as he tried to get a foot through while Malloria turned politely toward the wall, though he caught the quick flick of her gaze downward before she snapped it back to his face, cheeks darkening to a deep plum. How long, he asked, pulling his shirt over his head. I don't know, hours maybe. The bed was cold. Ryan swore under his breath. She disabled the camera on her window, didn't she? Malloria's eyes narrowed. You put a camera on my daughter's window. For exactly this reason, Ryan shot back. I know a runner when I see one. He grabbed his phone and stabbed a contact. Chris, yeah, I know it's early. Arena's gone. No, not kidnap Iran, because she's 13 and thinks sacrifice is noble instead of stupid. Meet me at the shop. They were halfway down the stairs when they saw Orvin already standing in the middle of the workshop, all three eyes fixed on them. It's not inspection time yet, Ryan said warily. The inspection is postponed, Orvin replied. His middle eye was dim, the other two scanning the space like a restless metronome. I detected the young one's biosignature leaving the area at approximately 3:47 a.m. I have been tracking her. Ryan stopped dead. You've been what? Tracking her. Because I have some experience with running. Orvin said stiffly, and with the particular desperation that drives it. Malloria's voice was sharp enough to cut. Where is my daughter? The abandoned Griffith Observatory, Orvin said. The one where Mr. Dalton first repaired Auroron's equipment. She has been modifying the old communication array. I believe she is attempting to contact her father's last known coordinates. Malloria's breath hitched, and Ryan caught the brief surge in her gravity field loose screws, and a stray wrench rattled on the nearest shelf. She still thinks he might be alive, Malloria whispered. We need to go, Ryan said immediately. Now. I'm coming too, Chris said, barreling in through the back door with his car keys in hand. I'm not losing my best customer or my best source of weird stories for the bar. Your concern is touching, Orvin said dryly. We will take my vehicle. It is faster. 15 minutes later, Ryan found himself gripping the door handle of Orvin's sleek, obsidian-colored transport, a craft that handled like a sports car and occasionally phased through traffic as if Earth's roads were optional. Is this even street legal? Ryan demanded as they ghosted through the back half of a delivery truck. I have diplomatic immunity, Orvin replied without looking at him. Also, human traffic laws are suggestions at best when one can manipulate molecular density. Chris whooped from the back seat. I like this guy now. In the seat beside him, Malloria sat rigid, her field making all their hair stand on end. Your daughter, Orvin said carefully, is attempting to find closure. Something I understand intimately. Here it comes, Ryan thought, glancing sideways. I was 8 Earth years old when my planet fell to civil war, Orvin continued, ignoring Chris's muttered story time. My parents put me on a refugee ship, promising they would follow on the next transport. I waited at the spaceport for 73 days, scanning every arrival, creating algorithms to track incoming vessels, calculate survival probabilities. The hum of the engine filled the silence. On the 74th day, Orvin said quietly, I received an automated message. Their ship had been destroyed attempting to leave orbit. I was alone, and I decided that if I could not control who lived or died, I would control everything else. Rules don't leave. Rules don't die. Rules don't break their promises. No one spoke after that. We're here, Orvin said finally. The Griffith Observatory loomed against the pre-dawn sky, its dome cracked and the surrounding lot littered with weeds pushing through fractured concrete. Ryan spotted the flicker of light from the main building, definitely not standard city power. Arena's handiwork, no question. They moved quickly through the echoing halls, following the faint hum of alien tech, until they reached the central chamber. Arena sat hunched over a jury-rigged console, green-tinted hair, falling into her face, fingers flying over the controls. Come on, she muttered. Come on, answer just once, Arena, Malloria said softly. Arena spun around, eyes red-rimmed but defiant. I disabled the tracker on Ryan's truck. How did you? We're adults with resources, Ryan said. Also, Orvin's basically part bloodhound. I prefer efficiently observant, Orvin corrected. Go away, Arena snapped, turning back to the console. The inspection's in an hour. You need to be there. Show him you're better off without me. A burst of static cut her off, followed by a mechanical voice so cold it made Ryan's stomach knot. Scout ship 7394 destroyed in action. No survivors. Message repeats for next of kin. The voice repeated, Arena's hand hovered over the disconnect button, trembling. "No," she whispered. "No, that's wrong. He promised. He's careful. He said one more mission, one more, and we'd be safe." The message repeated again. Her legs gave out. Ryan caught her before she hit the floor, holding her, as sobs tore out of her chest. I knew, she gasped. I always knew he was gone. But hoping hurt less than knowing. Hoping meant maybe. Malloria dropped to her knees beside them, wrapping her arms around them both, her own tears drifting upward like tiny purple stars. "We may not be the family you dreamed of," she said fiercely, "but we are the family you have. And we're not going anywhere." Arena's voice was raw. "Everyone goes. Everyone leaves or dies or trades you away." "Not us," Ryan said, voice steady. "We're not even a traditional family. We're messy and loud, and half the time we break the laws of physics, but we choose each other, and we're not letting go." For a while, no one spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the modified communications array, still spitting out its cruel automated report. "Scout ship 7394 destroyed in action. No survivors. Message repeats for next of kin." It cycled again, each repetition hammering at the air like a blunt instrument. Arena sat between Ryan and Malloria, shoulders shaking under the weight of the words. She'd stopped crying loudly, but the quiet sobs were worse. Small, sharp inhalations, like she was trying to pull the grief back inside where no one could see it. "I kept thinking maybe he just forgot us," she murmured, almost to herself. "Or maybe he found something better. I hated him for that. But dead means he tried. He tried and he couldn't come back. And I've been mad at him for nothing." Malloria's hand cupped her daughter's cheek. "You're allowed to be angry. And you're allowed to grieve. Both can be true." Arena leaned into her mother's touch but didn't look up. "It doesn't matter. None of this matters. We'll never be a real family." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You're wrong." She glanced at him, eyes rimmed red. "You think families are about DNA or paperwork? They're not. Families are the people who choose to stick around. Even when it's messy, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts." Her voice cracked. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Ryan said. "I know you're smart enough to hack alien tech before you've had breakfast. I know you're stubborn enough to make a three-eyed bureaucrat grind his teeth. And I know you're brave enough to go looking for answers, even if you're afraid of what you'll find. That's family material where I come from." Arena gave a wet laugh that was half sob. "That's the worst pep talk." "Yeah," Ryan admitted, "but it's the truth." Behind them, Orvin had been silent, standing just inside the door with his arms folded. Now he stepped forward, scrolling skin shifting to display sections of legal text Ryan didn't recognize. "I have been an idiot," Orvin said finally. "So fix that," Ryan replied without missing a beat. "I intend to. Auroran listed you both as transferable property. Orvin told Malloria, but as registered refugees, you cannot be owned, traded, or transferred. It's a foundational clause of the Galactic Refugee Protection Act of 2387. It supersedes all other contract provisions." Malloria blinked. "You're saying—" "I can file an emergency petition today," Orvin said. "The debt transfer is invalid. It always has been. I should have recognized that immediately." Ryan stared at him. "So you can make this whole mess go away?" "Not go away." Orvin's middle eye locked on him. "Be made right." Malloria hesitated. "After everything, why now?" "Because I've spent too long enforcing the letter of the law while forgetting its spirit," Orvin said. "You chose your daughter over comfort. You built something real with someone who sees you as a person, not an obligation. That deserves protection." A faint, reluctant smile curved Malloria's lips. 15 years too late. "Ancient history," Orvin said briskly, turning toward the door. "We have a hearing in 2 hours. Mr. Dalton, I trust you own a shirt without oil stains?" Ryan smirked. "One, I'll try not to get it dirty before court." They left the observatory together, Ryan, Malloria, Arena, walking side by side, Orvin striding ahead like the world's most overqualified usher, and Chris bringing up the rear with the easy swagger of someone who'd just been drafted into a legal drama for the day. The sun was breaking over the horizon, painting the cracked dome in gold. Arena squinted against the light, still pale but steadier. Malloria kept a hand lightly on her daughter's back like she was afraid letting go might make her vanish again. Ryan fell into step beside them. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "No," Arena said honestly. "But maybe I will be." "Good enough for now." Back in the shop, the rush to get ready for court was chaotic and strangely domestic. Malloria insisted on finding a scarf to hide a small scorch mark on Ryan's shirt collar. "Appearances matter," she said, ignoring his protests, while Arena combed her hair into something less like runaway hacker and more like responsible teenager. Chris brewed a pot of coffee strong enough to melt steel, pouring it into mismatched travel mugs for everyone, including Orvin, who sniffed at his before taking a cautious sip. Not bad, Orvin admitted. High praise from Mr. Rules and Regulations, Chris muttered. Ryan was still adjusting his collar when Malloria touched his arm. He turned, finding her eyes on him, serious and tense. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For coming after her. For not letting her run alone. Ryan swallowed against the lump in his throat. Family rule. Nobody gets left behind. Malloria's lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. Good rule. The ride to the courthouse was tense, but not in the same way as the trip to the observatory. This time there was a sense of forward momentum, of something finally tilting in their favor. Irina sat between Ryan and her mother in the backseat of Orvin's official vehicle, earbuds in, but music low enough that Ryan could hear the faint static of whatever playlist she'd queued up. Her knee jiggled restlessly. You nervous? Ryan asked. Yes, she said without looking at him, but not about court. What then? That if this works, we'll actually have to figure out what we are. Ryan considered that. We'll figure it out. That's the easy part. Easy. Irina raised an eyebrow. Compared to asteroid mines, definitely. That got him the tiniest smirk. The Galactic Court building was in true alien fashion, housed in what had once been a Bank of America branch. The massive vault door remained now functioning as a high-security entry to the main courtroom. Inside the space was a kaleidoscope of species tentacles, feathers, fur, and at least one being made entirely of shimmering gas in a tailored suit. Ryan felt the weight of their stares as they walked to the center. Orvin peeled off to the prosecutor's table, having officially recused himself as inspector to act as their advocate. Malloria and Irina took seats behind Ryan, Chris flanking them like a self-appointed bodyguard. When the central judge, a towering insectoid with multifaceted eyes, asked him to state his case, Ryan rose. He'd had a speech ready, lines he'd rehearsed in the car. But looking at Malloria and Irina now, at the way they sat close enough for their shoulders to touch, the prepared words evaporated. I wasn't given a family as payment, he said, voice steady. That's what the contract says, but contracts lie. 3 days ago, a scared woman and her daughter showed up in my shop. They'd been traded, abandoned, treated like cargo. Your laws say that makes them mine. But if your laws say that, your laws are wrong. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. The gasping judge flickered orange, which Ryan guessed wasn't a compliment. They're not here because of a debt, Ryan continued. They're here because this is their home now. Because family isn't a clause or a subsection. It's staying when things get hard. It's catching someone when they fall, literally if you're dealing with gravity surges. That got a few chuckles. They're not my property, Ryan said, glancing back at Malloria and Irina. They're my family, and I choose them. The judges conferred in a flurry of languages Ryan couldn't understand. Orvin standing perfectly still, while his scrolling text shifted faster than Ryan had ever seen. Finally, the central judge spoke. The court declares the debt transfer null and void. Orion of Kepler 442b will face fraud charges for misrepresenting sentient beings as transferable assets. Malloria and Irina of Lion are granted full refugee status with immediate Earth residency privileges. The room erupted cheers, alien trills, even a wolf whistle Ryan was 90% sure came from Chris. And then Malloria was in his arms, launching herself across the space with enough force to lift him off his feet. They spun slowly in a bubble of softened gravity, her laughter bright against his ear. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, thank you. Family, Ryan murmured back. Remember, this is what we do. They came down from that gravity-light spin slowly, as though neither of them wanted their feet to touch the ground again. Malloria stepped back just enough to look into Ryan's face, amber eyes bright as molten metal. Is that what we are then, family? Ryan's lips twitched into a half-smile. Among other things. Her gaze searched his, something unspoken passing between them. Acknowledgement, gratitude, and something deeper that neither was ready to name aloud. Not yet. Then she kissed him. It wasn't a polite thank you sort of kiss. It was the kind of kiss that ignored the packed courtroom, the curious stares, and the fact that the gasping judge had just turned a rather startling shade of pink. It was slow, warm, and completely unbothered by the gravitational field curling around them like an embrace. Ryan felt his boots leave the ground again, but this time it wasn't surprise, it was inevitability. Her arms around his neck, the hum of her skin under his palms, the faint scent of ion mist, and something floral. He could have stayed in that suspended orbit forever. Mom. Gross. Irina's voice sliced through the moment with surgical teenage precision. Get a room. or at least stop defying physics in public. They broke apart, laughing, their feet touching down again. Ryan gave Irina a mock glare. My daughter, the mood killer. Your daughter, Irina, corrected smugly. Who just got you floating in a courtroom? Do you have any idea how many TikToks this is going to end up in? Laya's probably already posting. Ryan slung an arm around her shoulders, pulling her into a half hug she pretended to resist. Not every day you see a guy literally swept off his feet. Let her post. Malloria was smiling now. Not the guarded, careful kind he'd seen in the first days, but the open, radiant smile of someone who just walked out from under a shadow. Ridiculously free, she said softly. Ryan met her eyes. Just us, right? Just us, Malloria agreed. The aftershocks of the ruling rippled through the gallery. Chris fought his way over, grinning like a man who just won a bet. You know, I'd say that went better than expected. Nobody got arrested, nobody exploded, and there was kissing. 10 out of 10 entertainment value. Ryan rolled his eyes but didn't let go of Malloria's hand. Glad we could keep you amused. Hey, I've sat through more boring legal hearings, Chris said. Once saw a dispute about docking fees that lasted 6 hours. No kissing, not even eye contact. Orvin approached, all three eyes trained on them. His usual bureaucratic stiffness softened just a little. I have already initiated the paperwork to formalize your refugee status, he told Malloria. And I've forwarded charges against Aruron to the Kepler courts. Malloria inclined her head. Thank you, Ver, for remembering who you used to be. For a second, Ryan thought Orvin might actually smile. I had good examples. He turned his gaze to Irina. And Miss Irina, your school registration is now fully recognized by the League. Try not to hack the administrative systems. Irina smirked. No promises. The trip back from the courthouse felt lighter literally because Malloria's gravity field had softened into a barely there hum, and figuratively because the looming threat of deportation was gone. Irina dozed in the back seat, head tipped against the window, while Chris and Orvin discussed the relative merits of Andromedan versus Terran coffee beans, with all the intensity of a peace negotiation. Ryan drove Malloria in the passenger seat. She didn't say much, but her hand found his on the console between them, fingers curling loosely around his. The simple touch carried more weight than any words. That night, the apartment didn't feel like a holding space anymore. It felt like home. Dinner was chaotic. Chris stayed to celebrate Irina and a video called halfway through to show off the viral courtroom clip. 17,000 views already, and Malloria managed to both levitate and burn the bread in the same breath. Ryan didn't mind. Every clang of a floating spoon, every burst of laughter, every sideways glance from Malloria across the table, it was all part of something he hadn't realized he'd been missing, a life that was messy, loud, and full of people worth messing it up for. After Chris left and Irina retreated to her room, Ryan found Malloria standing by the window looking out at the city lights. Thinking about something, he asked, joining her. Everything, she said quietly. What we've lost, what we've found, how fragile it all feels. He leaned on the sill beside her. Fragile doesn't mean it's not worth holding on to. Her gaze slid to him, and in the reflection of the glass, their faces were side by side. You're certain you want this us? Yeah, Ryan said without hesitation. I'm in. Gravity Surge's cinnamon hair products, alien in-laws I haven't met yet. Whatever comes next, I'm in. She smiled, and it wasn't just radiant, it was grounding. Then I guess we really are. Just us. A week later, the last piece of official paperwork arrived in the mail. A sleek metallic card bearing Malloria's and Irina's New Earth residency credentials with the Galactic League seal shimmering faintly in the corner. Irina taped hers to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a frog, declaring it proof we're stuck with each other. Ryan laughed, but there was something in the way she said we that lodged itself in his chest, a casual claim unguarded and real. By the time the dust settled, the three of them had fallen into routines that didn't feel like routines so much as a rhythm. Irina went to school and occasionally caused harmless tech incidents. Malloria helped in the shop, her gravity field now more under control most days. Ryan kept the business running now, with a steady trickle of alien customers curious about the human who could fix anything, and had won a court case by declaring love and family in open session. Chris, of course, told the story to anyone who would listen, embellishing the floating kiss until it sounded like they'd orbited the judge's bench twice before landing. Ryan didn't bother correcting him. One evening, after Irina had gone to bed and the shop was locked for the night, Ryan sat on the couch with Malloria, a mug of coffee in his hands. She leaned back against the cushion's, legs tucked under her eyes half closed. You ever think about what would have happened if Aruron hadn't walked into my shop that day, Ryan asked. Yes, she said. and I stopped thinking about it very quickly. Because it's bad. Because it didn't happen. We are here. That is enough. Ryan set down his mug and took her hand, threading their fingers together. Yeah, it is. Her lips curved into that slow, deliberate smile he was learning, meant she was both at ease and a little embarrassed. Also, she added, it would be a waste of perfectly good gravity to spend it on what-ifs. Ryan laughed, pulling her gently toward him. You're ridiculous. So are you, she murmured and kissed him again, slower this time, with no courtroom, no audience, and no interruptions. 6 months. In that time, winter had loosened its grip on the city, spring had slid past almost unnoticed, and now summer hung heavy in the air, thick with the scent of asphalt and blooming jacarandas. Ryan leaned against the doorway of Dalton's Repairs, no longer just his shop, but their shop. The fresh sign above the door read Dalton & Companies in bold black letters, with a stylized wrench and a tiny gravitational swirl in the corner. Malloria had insisted on the swirl. The code wasn't just Malloria. Arena's name was on the business license too. Ryan had said it was symbolic ownership belonging. Arena had said it was good marketing since the locals thought having alien staff meant the repairs were guaranteed to last longer. She wasn't wrong. The morning rush was in full swing. A delivery drone with a busted stabilizer wobbled into the bay, followed by a customer complaining that his hover scooter kept drifting into traffic. Ryan suspected operator error, but Malloria took the job with a patient smile. She wore a faded shop apron over her clothes, now a habit she'd picked up from him. Stray streaks of engine grease marked her cheekbones, and her hair was tied back in a knot that had somehow stayed neat despite the chaos. Arena breezed in late, wearing her school uniform shirt unbuttoned over a tank top, earbuds hanging around her neck. Sorry, she announced without much conviction. Leia wanted to stop for breakfast burritos. Ryan raised an eyebrow. You brought me one. No, Arena grinned. But I brought you the joy of my presence, which is way more filling. Malloria shot her daughter the kind of look only a mother could manage, a blend of affection, exasperation, and we'll talk later. Ryan just laughed. By midday, the shop was running smoothly. Orvin stopped by, still dressed in immaculate League diplomatic attire, to drop off a small crate of alien tech for calibration. This is not work for amateurs, he said, setting the crate on the counter with unnecessary care. Good thing we're not amateurs, Ryan said. Good thing indeed. Orvin's middle eye turned toward Arena. And how is school? Arena shrugged. Fine. She's top of her class in robotics, Malloria said proudly. Only because my teacher doesn't know I hacked the grading algorithm, Arena muttered. Orvin pretended not to hear, but the faint twitch of his lips gave him away. The afternoons were quieter now. Summer heat kept the smaller jobs away until evening, leaving Ryan and Malloria time to catch up on larger repairs or just sit in the back room drinking cold coffee while Arena claimed the couch to work on whatever project she was building. Today it was a palm-sized drone shaped like a dragonfly, wings shimmering with reactive panels. Arena was halfway through installing a micro camera when the drone's eyes lit up and a faint chime sounded. That's not supposed to happen, she murmured. Malloria looked over from the workbench. What did you connect it to? Nothing, Arena said. It connected itself. Ryan frowned and leaned in. It's receiving something. Arena tapped a few commands, and the drone projected a small flickering image into the air, a distorted waveform accompanied by a heavily degraded voice. Ina, alive. Trapped. The signal cut off abruptly. Arena froze. Play it again. It's not stored, Ryan said, scanning the drone's memory. That was live. Malloria's gravity field shifted so faint Ryan wouldn't have noticed 6 months ago, but now he recognized it instantly. That voice, Arena's breath hitched. It sounded like, I know, Malloria said. Ryan's mind was already racing. The source data was fragmented, but he caught one solid coordinate string before it vanished deep in a restricted region of League-controlled space. Arena looked at him, eyes wide. If there's even a chance, Ryan didn't let her finish. We're not ignoring it. The rest of the day passed in a haze of half-finished repairs and distracted conversations. Arena kept glancing at the dragonfly drone like it might speak again. Malloria worked mechanically, her mind clearly elsewhere. Ryan didn't push. He knew what that kind of hope could do to you, how it could burn bright enough to pull you forward or eat you alive from the inside. When closing time came, Arena headed to her room without her usual banter. Malloria lingered in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug of tea she hadn't touched. You're thinking the same thing, Omium, Ryan said quietly. That it could be him, she asked without looking up. That we can't let her go chasing ghosts alone, Ryan replied. If it's nothing, we'll deal with it. If it's something, Malloria met his gaze then, and for a moment the gravity between them felt heavier, Not because it was pulling them down, but because it was anchoring them together. "Then we go," she said. Later that night, Ryan stood in the living room looking at the Dragonfly drone resting on the table. He'd already started pulling up navigation charts in his mind, mapping the path to those coordinates. It would be dangerous, maybe impossible. But 6 months ago, he promised Irina she wouldn't have to run alone ever again. He intended to keep that promise. The next morning dawned bright and hot. Irina came into the kitchen to find Ryan and Malloria already seated, coffee mugs in hand, a third mug waiting for her. Ryan slid a folded piece of paper across the table. "Coordinates from last night. I cleaned up the data." Irina picked it up, scanning the numbers. Her eyes flicked to his. "You mean it?" "We mean it," Malloria said firmly. "If your father is alive, we will find him." For a second, Irina just stared at them. Then she smiled, small, sharp, and certain. "Okay, let's go get him." Ryan grinned. "After breakfast." That afternoon, the close sign hung in the shop window for the first time in months. The Dalton and Kobe, crew human alien and teenage chaos, began preparing for a journey that would take them far beyond the safe edges of Earth space. Somewhere out there in a region the League didn't like to talk about, a voice had called out to Irina. And Ryan, Dalton, Malloria of Lion and their daughter weren't about to let that voice go unanswered.